My view is that it's all fine. As long as everybody's choosing what they want to do, it doesn't matter to me in the slightest if one field of activity is dominated by men, another field is dominated by women. This is going to happen. We shouldn't panic every time it happens. If it seems, and for example, let me bring up the question of STEM, which is a big thing. Women should be represented in technology, in science, and many are doing extremely well, but they find that there's just a lack of desire to go into those industries, partly because what are you doing? You sit in front of a fucking computer all day long coding? You have to be a sort of slightly autistic male to really enjoy that kind of stuff. Similarly, giving up your whole fucking life for a job, which is what happens when you get to be up the higher echelons of these. So just living in the work is something that women in general are smarter about. They don't want to live like that. Some do, but in general there are these differences. And is that something that worries you, or something that's fine by you? Is it a failure? If the incomes are different, is that a problem too? Do we need to equalize those things? Tell me.
Well, I'm not an equality feminist. I'm a liberation feminist. So I don't strive.
Interesting.
I think equality is a liberal project. And what we're saying is, give us what the men have got. We want to be able to do that too. And I think that, we need to transform society. If we're looking at any liberation movement, we're looking at the nuts and bolts of how we got there. So I don't agree with you on the fact that men and women are so vastly different. I think there are differences in the way that we have to organise, for example, who has the babies. We don't have any choice about that. We do have a choice about the way that men are discouraged from caring for their own children, from taking paternity leave, from actually being nurturing. They are discouraged because it's stigmatised. And women are encouraged to breed, to go through what I think must be a life of hell in having to raise children for no good reason whatsoever. Someone else is going to always have them. So I'm not, the one distinction I want to make is Judith Butler has absolutely come in on a very solid argument made by early feminists, and she has bastardized it. She has twisted it and taken it to an absolute extreme. What early feminists said was that we recognize there are sex differences, biological differences, and they matter, but they matter way less than you think. But what those early feminists said is, gender is a way in which women are oppressed by their biology. So biology is one thing. The gender, in other words, the sex stereotypes that we impose upon women, is therefore what does for us. Now, what Butler has said is everything's a social construct.
Yeah.
Nothing has any material reality. Well, that's clearly barking mad, because of course there's something distinct about a female sexed person and a male sexed person, but we give it way too much weight. And no, of course I don't care if women want to sit coding all day. I don't care if men want to do it or not. I think maybe an autistic woman might enjoy it just as much as an autistic man.
I'm sure she would. But there are many fewer autistic women than there are autistic men, which is another interesting fact.
Or maybe there's more boys who are diagnosed as autistic when we're talking about different kinds of behaviour, and they're being overdiagnosed. So I think everything can be seen through the prism of patriarchy and feminism, but that doesn't mean everything can be solved. It doesn't mean that we're always right, but I think that we need to stand back and look at why there are such perceived huge differences between men and women, because I don't agree with you that they are so vast. There are male friends of mine who would be perfectly unrecognisable in polite society as anti-sexist men. They don't wear Hessian slippers. They don't go around with a papoose with everybody else's baby doing childcare all the time. They're not all softly spoken and following the stereotype of a 1970s kind of anti-sexist man. They are regular human beings who have decided that they want to be actual human beings as opposed to patriarchal, fucking machines or whatever. That's it's up to them why they want to kind of unpick the excesses of their masculine traits and feel very comfortable in doing that because they recognize they've been in a bit of a straitjacket all their lives with sex stereotypes and being bullied by the kind of tougher boys. And we see it in the gay community. We see it everywhere. And I don't think there are vast differences, but I think that there are huge differences in the choices that boys and girls, men and women have. And if we are honest about the choices women have, then we would really unpick this stuff about, well, of course, girls want to grow up to be X, Y, and Z, whereas boys are much more likely to want to go for these other professions. Girls have very few choices compared to boys, even in today's society in the West, where we have absolutely made great strides. The problem is, of course, in the US and the UK and across Europe, across much of Europe, it's the glass ceiling that people are concerned about. I'm concerned about the women in the basement, not the women who aren't earning $1 million a year. I mean, it matters that they're being paid less than their male counterparts, but I care more about the women at the bottom, because feminism has to reach them, or equality is meaningless.